welcome to the 100th episode from Ampro Engineering. How did that happen? I'm kind of blown away myself. Nevertheless, it has happened. That's awesome. And for this episode, I wanted to focus on the real star of this YouTube series. And yes, if not for all of you watching, we wouldn't even have this YouTube series. But I think you'll agree with me that the real star of this is 3D printing. And oftentimes, when I tell people about some of the designs that I do, the reaction is always the same. It's always, oh, well, that's nice. 3D printing is great for toys and, for prototyping. And I'm always offended because they completely lack the vision to understand that 3D printed things, and I'm not just saying RC car parts, I'm just saying 3D printed things in general are good enough for daily products. So the reason that I'm in this car right now and not sitting in front of my desk has to do with exactly that. I wanted to be in the car because this car has a number of 3D printed components that have made this car's restoration possible. Without 3D printing, these parts simply wouldn't be available. It's not like I can have something designed and then injection molded for a total of one car. I mean, injection molding costs tens of thousands of dollars per part. So 3D printing has made that possible. What we're going to focus on in this video is not going to be RC cars for once. It is going to be things that 3D printing has made possible that wouldn't otherwise be possible with a reasonable amount of money. So we're going to see some parts that I've designed for my cars, some things in the house, other toys that have been fixed up because of 3D printing. And although I don't want to focus on the toys, I do want to focus on other things that maybe you think twice about. And you don't have to have an old car to leverage 3D printing. You don't need to have a car in general. I've got parts on my bike that I 3D printed. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it's a little bit different, but I really wanted to change things up for this video to thank 3D printing in general for its existence, because it has made everything that I'm passionate about that much better. Enjoy the video, and here's to another 100 episodes.
And we can look here at the taillight on my bike. Right here, these two little brackets are both 3D printed. On my car, this center cap here, that is a 3D printed part. The reason it looks so good in comparison to the rim is that that 3D printed part has been painted in an aluminum color and then clear coated and a decal applied there. In case you wanted to see what that cap looked like before it was painted, this is it here in bare SLS nylon, and you would just pop it right in there, give it a tap, and you're good to go. These are made originally of ABS, and the car's 40 years old. Even when new, they were quite bad, and to find them now in good shape, you'll spend a couple $100s for something that's decent. Otherwise, your rim will just look like that. Taking a look here at my convertible, this knob here, 3D printed. This trim piece for the seat release, also 3D printed. Both of these are SLS nylon, as usual, from Shapeways, and painted black to match the upholstery. This radio here that we can see has this trim panel around it. When I first purchased this car, the trim area for the radio was very, very bad, and this is a padded fiberglass, so this actually is vinyl with a padding beneath it. And what I had to do to make this thing look better was make a fascia for it and kind of add a little bit of a detail. Unfortunately, the color is not showing up as it should. That's actually blue. Once again, SLS nylon. Might be a little bit hard to see here, but this lens, that is all 3D printed as well. And here we are in my Toyota truck. This little plug here that is missing on every single one of these 1980s, I should say 79 through 83 Toyota trucks, well, that sucker is 3D printed in elastoplastic. I'm quite proud of this. Usually these dashboards are destroyed because people put modern, larger radios in the car, and I was able to source the correct AM radio. However, the knobs were missing, so I just went ahead and 3D printed some. In fact, I added a little bit of a T. You can see that too well right there. There, that's a little nicer right there. You can see that better. Just to give it a little more cosmetic flair. So again, both of these knobs, the outer and the inner one, are 3D printed, once again in SLS nylon. The little retaining ring that actually holds this knob here for the headlights on some of my older Fords is commonly a piece of, I'm pretty sure it's nylon as it is, but just the years of turning the headlights on and off, and more importantly bumping it with your knee, has led to most of these being broken. Therefore, I've 3D printed that. I don't know how well you can see it. It's printed in nylon and painted in quote-unquote chrome to give it more of a, against this little piece right there. Also in this car, and how well you can see it, but I added these little switch panels here that do a variety of things in the car. And, you know, I mounted it to some pre-existing holes because I don't like putting holes in things. But, I don't know, it looks kind of ghetto. So I've fixed not only that, but this. How you can see it. This is a 3-pod gauge cluster here, designed specifically for this car. It is fiberglass, and you know, the fiberglass isn't too bad, but it did actually come with a number of these little chips, which I didn't really notice until I had painted it, unfortunately. Fitment's okay, but like I have to drill holes in the metal, and I hate that. But more importantly, I hate this. Do you see this scratched area on my door? That is because the fiberglass doesn't fit great and it keeps rubbing, and it drives me insane. I'm tired of dealing with these issues, so I have resolved it. What I have done here is created, I apologize for all the glare, is a instrument cluster to house the gauges necessary. So for example, oil pressure, engine temp, and a digital tachometer. I hate digital tachometers. It does have an analog readout on the perimeter that lights up, but it was difficult to find an analog tachometer that matched these guys here. The whole thing clamps to the steering column right here and allows me to have access to all of my necessary gauges right in front of me, and my A-pillar is completely unharmed. I also added some items to this here, and what I've done was mimic the trim that is visible in other elements of the car. For example, on the dash panel here, I did the same thing with these fonts and how these guys all look, how these are embossed to match the ones on the instrumentation. When I customize things, I don't want things to look custom. For example, I can turn the fog light on and you'll see that it illuminates. There is an LED. It's a little hard to see, but there's an LED in there. The lens is 3D printed in acrylic, and the housing is printed in SLS nylon. The same is true for this. This is all SLS. However, I'm going to try and close the garage door right now. All right, we are looking at that same panel, and I'm going to turn the lights on. And what I was able to do, and I apologize, it looks a little like it's got a hot spot in the middle, but that's simply because it's the camera picking that up. The text is recessed, and when painting the black, I did that by hand, so I simply did not get paint in the recesses, and this has allowed me to have illumination just like factory. I've got a very similar setup over here. And again, it matches the factory illumination. And again, that fog light here. This is a notification that the auxiliary fan is working. So like the other side, these bolt into pre-existing holes in the dash, and thusly omitting the holes and drilling things into pieces of the car that I don't want to. I added a little bit of a digital a digital voltmeter here as well. Commonly, people tend to mount the gauge cluster either in this area on the dash, which involves not only destroying this plastic panel, but cutting holes in your metal dashboard, which is basically irreversible unless you do significant metal work. Previously, I had them in a small pocket right here in the center console. That means as I'm driving, I have to now look down here, which is just not acceptable. I did want to point out these little knobs. These are little chrome plated. I think these actually are, yeah, these are metal. And so these are the factory knobs on the air conditioning control. However, the ones that I've added look nothing like that. I think they look quite subpar. So what I did is I printed out this little cap. I painted it chrome. It needs another couple coats, that's why it hasn't been installed yet. And what you're going to do is install it like so. And then you'll have, well, you can see that lighting up there. So it will still light up. However, it'll give a much more cohesive look. Again, SLS nylon, a little dab of clear RTV, and we'll be good to go. I do have a version of this dome light lens that is 3D printed. Unfortunately, I just didn't have one to install yet. This one here is not in too bad a shape, but you can see why these will be reprinted is that they tend to get burned over the decades, so I do have that piece. I also have printed these little retaining clips for the visor. These are rubber, and even the new ones last a matter of years, 3 or 4 years, and they turn to dust. So I have those in nylon. I also have these that I have 3D printed in nylon. The original ones look like this, and the new ones from the Doorman Help series are trash, and they'll last a few winds of your window. This hood latch, nylon. This hood prop rod little assembly here is also nylon. They sell these things in ABS and they're just trash, and they're insanely expensive, like 18 or 19 bucks for the pair. This piece and this piece here, and they are insanely weak. Wondering what Ampro did before 3D printing, all of these heater pipes are early beta examples of some of the heater pipes I designed. I say beta because you can see that there is a kind of a flat spot here in this pipe, which is very common for these. Later ones were mandrel bent, so they no longer have this. I also designed and made these battery hold downs here in steel. The originals were made out of some kind of a cheese or butter, I would assume. I also designed the battery tray with this little lip here and an integrated heat shield. Again, this is a mandrel bent example. It's a different engine, but this example here does have a constant diameter through the entire sweep of the pipe. This is stainless steel. The other one in the other car, I think, was a high-end carbon steel. And here what we have is, again, another battery hold down for a different style of battery, and another battery tray with integrated heat shield. And one of my colleagues has recently 3D printed the enclosure for this fog light here. The lenses are actually pretty easy to get, but over the years the salt of the German roads has taken a toll on the actual metal enclosure, so he has printed the entire thing, but he has also installed a 3D printed gasket out of elastoplastic, and not only has it prevented water from entering, but the entire enclosure seems to be capable of supporting the LED light that he's placed into it. So that's an amazing little feat of 3D printed to replace significant missing components on some of these older cars. I do have a design ready to print of this entire trim panel, as well as the gasket. Very commonly, when the convertible tops are not properly adjusted, this is what happens to some of these older cars. So I have the entire thing printed, designed. Unfortunately, the print prices for something of this size are quite astronomical, at least in terms of a high quality part. This is probably in the $3,000 to $4,000 range, so give it a couple more years and I think it'll get down. Remember, some of these parts that I've shown you already were $3,000 or $4,000 a few years ago, and now Shapeways is able to create these parts for a few dollars. I'm going to show you one more thing that a buddy of mine has made. This entire feature here for the trunk lid on this convertible is made out of ABS, and this particular one's not too horrible, but on most of them they turn to dust and are cracked. So this entire component has also been printed now in SLS nylon and is capable of being used on a real car. These little doorknob retainers here, 3D printed. So I did want to mention on this car, a number of these small components. This, for example, is the breather tube for the crankcase. The component in here that holds the whole assembly together, 3D printed. The component that holds the fuel vapor recirculation hose, also 3D printed. This is my current project. I have a number of 3D printed parts for this car here. I have, why are you in here? How did you get in here? Oh well. No sense in missing a good opportunity to pet a cat. Anyway, why don't you come out real quick? There you go. Anyway, so this car actually came this way, unfortunately. So I've been in the process of sorting all the electrical, and believe it or not, it looks better than it used to, but this car will now have air conditioning and heated seats, and I have a number of designs which will mimic the car's, well, that's not it. It will mimic the car's rather unique switch gear. So the power switch for the air conditioning will look exactly like this, and the thermostat control for the AC will look like this. Nylon runners for the sunroof on this car are destroyed, so I have already designed some, and they will be going in there as soon as I finish the headliner. In line with the work on that car, I'm in the process of installing air conditioning. This is a original evaporator in quite poor condition. That grease is not supposed to be inside of it. Anyway, this is going out for reconditioning and modernization, but the original enclosure here has this very large door, and this is where the air recirculation from the cabin would enter the car. The mechanism is quite terrible, so I have been in the process of designing a replacement for this mechanism, which is vacuum controlled and rudimentary at best. And I will be installing a new variation of this using a servo operated system with a very neat little nylon door that is not only better insulated, but is going to perform significantly better. I restored this tricycle for my daughter shortly before I discovered that it was re-released. Never mind that. So the rear bushings on this were 3D printed from SLS nylon. The originals were quite heavily cracked, so I just printed some before I realized you could actually buy them. And no one's perfect. The Atari 2600 has the composite video out port trim plate 3D printed in nylon. There's the Watanabe. And Devastator for some reason. I know I said that I wanted to focus on things that weren't toys, but the fact of the matter is 3D printing really is suited beautifully for toys. This is a GoBot. This is, I believe it's called Littlefoot. I think this is a girl GoBot actually. I've had this since I was a little kid. Unfortunately, the rubber tires perished, and the roll bar lights and the front brush guard are gone with the sands of time. So thanks to 3D printing, I was able to whip up some new plastic tires. I made the new roll bar at the rear and the little brush guard at the front, and they're slightly modified because that's what I can do with 3D printing, is I can make them look the way that I want them to look. This guy is also a GoBot. In fact, we can see here on some more 3D printed tires. And at the bottom, I've got these little missiles with the little button there that I printed. Now the thing with these, it's not like these were missing. These actually never existed. So they're my own design. I would imagine that at some point the original design included a button and a little spring-loaded missile, and that was omitted. I don't think that was in not only the US release, but also in the Japanese release. So I just whipped something up to fill the hole there and fill the hole there, and well, there we have it. This little train that I got when I was little and rebuilt for my daughter has had, you can see it there. Yeah, you see that little gray piece. That is a retainer to hold the axle assembly in place because it was all broken. 3D printed on both sides. This is just the worst sound in the world. So this little Fisher-Price Explorer, the wheels were all cracked. They're plastic wheels, but I guess just over time and abuse, I would imagine, they cracked. So when I brought this home and cleaned it all up for my daughter, I discovered that they were broken. So I designed some new ones, complete with Fisher-Price logo. Probably should not have done that. And painted them and mounted them, and now we have all new wheels. So my wife and I restored this old dresser here from the 1800s, and it was missing these little key plates, so my wife just sketched what she wanted and I just had some printed. SLS nylon with several coats of clear, and there we have it.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. I know it may be a little bit shorter than I usually would have done for one of these anniversary videos, but I really did want to help people expand their minds when it came to what 3D printing can and can't do. So thank you, all of you that have been with me through these 100 videos. It is unbelievable that we've made it this far. Honestly, as I continue to look through some of my designs, I've barely even scratched the surface of what I have designed for RC cars. So that's awesome. I've got tons of stuff that is also non-RC car related. If there's anything that you saw in this video that you have any questions about, or if you're just curious, if you've got something that you want to, redo, can 3D printing actually make that happen? It's not perfect. There's certain things that simply can't be done reasonably at this time frame, but give it a couple of years. Right now we're on that exponential curve for 3D printing, and it's getting higher and higher and higher, and we're going to see absolutely unbelievable changes in the 3D printing world. I also like to thank Shapeways, because without Shapeways, I don't think I would have done hardly anything that I have done. And there's a lot of 3D printing companies out there that will do this service, but none as trouble-free and quick as Shapeways, not to mention as inexpensively. So Shapeways, thank you all so much for the things that you've accomplished and allowed me to accomplish. I've got a lot more videos planned. In fact, I've got 101, 102, and 103 all finished already. I'm currently at a public park. I've got my Hilux in the back seat, and we're going to take it for a nice little walk, and that will also be on an upcoming episode. So again, thank you to the entire community. We're going to have some more clips here at the end of the video just to see kind of what we've done here on this channel, and I imagine that the next clip show for maybe 150 or 200 is going to be even more wild. Thank you all so much, and we will see you next time.